Hello, I'm Steve Koontz with Keep It Watered, and we specialize in helping schools incorporate hydroponic gardening into their classrooms. And oftentimes I get asked the question, how do I find a grant? So I phoned a friend, called in an expert, Sheena Weller from Weller Grant Services, to help us answer that question. So, Sheena, how does a teacher look for a grant to apply for?
Well, thanks, Steve, for giving me a call about this. And yeah, this is probably the number one question you probably you probably get. Um, People are often looking for grants and really just don't know where to start. So I thought we would kind of just break it down into a few categories, and we'll just go through some scenarios of how you would actually search for a grant today. So if you have any questions, just jump in, okay, Steve, and I've got a few slides here that we can go through. Uh, I am Sheena Weller. I'm have founded Weller Grant Services about 5 years ago. I've been writing grants though for my community and schools, and for at least 15 years. I think I've lost track a little bit. It started small and it's just gotten bigger. So I'm happy to be here and help. I love teachers, so I think teachers are number one number one community members for raising our kids. So I appreciate everything that teachers do. So I'm happy to help. So I thought today we would just go through how to find grants in your local community and how to find grants using a paid subscription. And we'll talk about that a little more, and then some free resources that's out there. Um, So I really wanted to start with local community grants first because that's really where you're going to be the most competitive in your community. People might know you. They at least know the school that you're in. Um, and I thought this is really the first place you should go. Look, you can Google. We'll talk about that later. Grants for water towers and things like that. But you're going to get national kind of things probably, and when you think about the competitive nature of those national grants, they're not impossible to get, but these are the local grants are where you really want to focus your energies first. Um, so I wanted to talk to you about your local community foundations. You always want to see if your town or county has a local community foundation. That is your probably number one step, I would say. That was your first step. You find out if you have a community foundation in your community, in your county, and I would give them a call and just reach out to them, tell them who you are, tell them why you're looking for a grant, and they are a huge source of information. They will tell you what they have available, how you're eligible, and they will also probably let you in on what other grants are out there in your community. So that's really a great place to start. They're very, very helpful people. I don't think I've come up against a community foundation yet that hasn't been super helpful. Everybody has questions, professional grant writers. We call them all the time. We have questions all the time because things are just different in every community and county. Um,
How
so
does,
I would start,
Sheena, really quick, how
yeah.
does somebody find out if they have a community foundation? Because it
Oh, how to,
might be county-wide, it might not even be in their town. How would you find
yeah.
that out? Or are you going to go
So,
into that later?
well, no, I we can go over that right now, actually. So what I noticed a few of our participants who had registered, and I thought, well, let's see if we can kind of customize it to some of their areas and things like that. So I don't know anything about Naperville, Illinois, and so what I did is I just Googled community foundations in Naperville, Illinois. And it came up with an interesting thing, which I didn't know about Naperville, and which is why I love being a grant writer because I learn things all of the time. Is that Naperville is split into two counties, if I'm right. So they actually have two community foundations, one for each county, that they would be able to look at. But if your school is in one county or the other, you would do the county that your school is in. So stick with your county. But in Naperville, Illinois, it looked like there was two counties. So let me just look. Let me see if I can stop sharing and go to how. Okay. Um, what are you seeing, Steve?
Sheena Weller started screen sharing.
Hmm. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Here we go.
Like, oh, investing in our resources here, two-page foundation.
Okay, so in Naperville, Illinois, there is DuPage Foundation and Will County, the Community Foundation of Will County. So this is one of two community foundations. I'm just going to assume the school is in DuPage County. So I get to this and I was like, okay, they've got DuPage Foundation. Um, I look at all the tabs and just kind of see what's going on here. Now, I immediately, as you can see, like my mouse is just naturally goes to nonprofit tab because I know that's where I'm going to find grant opportunities. Sometimes it says resources. You know, if you're searching for the first time, you're just going to have to look at all the tabs. Grants are not always easy to find on places, and we'll talk about that a little more. But once you start figuring out where they're usually at on a website, then it helps. But a lot of times they're kind of hidden. I don't know. Don't know why, but uh, anyway, so I mean, what I would do if I was working for a client, I would actually read this whole thing. I would read everything about the community foundation. What is their things that they focus on? I want to understand what they like to give money for. Now, schools are almost always a given. So, um, that's the nice thing about being a teacher who's looking for a grant is that people want to help you. So, um, education is kind of number one with many, many, many foundations and many uh, funders. So I would read at the whole website, but I would go to nonprofits, I would go to grant opportunities. Um, so they have how we support nonprofits. And I like that they have this extra nonprofit resources tab. Let's just click that real quick because I'm curious. Sometimes the resources will actually help you write grants. But if you're unsure, definitely give them a call and say, hey, this is the first time I've written a grant. Would you help me? They will help you. But here's all the different funding buckets that they have available here. So what I do is that you want to see, like these are going to just kind of briefly describe if what the community impact grant is, what the Arts DuPage grant is, what the Bright and Early DuPage grant is, capacity building grant, Arts Health and Education grant. Um, Glen Ellen Fund. Now, I think maybe that's a town. So that's specifically for that community. So anybody outside of that community can't apply to that. Um, and it tells you that nonprofit or government organizations in Glen Ellen with unique projects. So you have to fit that requirement, that eligibility requirement to apply for that. So you look and you see which ones are a great fit. Now, I wouldn't, I would, if this is one of your first times, I would definitely call them and tell them. They will tell you exactly which grant to apply for because they'll know which if your project best fits. They know the boards for these different, they know the committees for all the different funding buckets here. So they know what those people want to fund. So I would just call them and ask them which one you think is a best fit. But like the health, the arts, health, and education, it supports visual arts, music programs, and enrich creative landscape. That may not, it sounds like it would be, but because of, I mean, I thought, oh yeah, that sounds like something that would be good for health and education if you're talking about fresh vegetables and healthy eating and things like that. But it kind of says visual arts and music programs, so that might not be the best fit. But I would go to the learn more, and in the learn more, it has a lot more information. And this is where you really start reading. Then you can get all the due dates of when an application is due. We're right at the beginning of 2026 now, so a lot of everybody is just kind of waking up into the new year. And so a lot of the websites are a little bit behind, but you can look and see that this particular application is due usually last year it was due October 31st, 2025. You can assume that that's going to be the case for 2026. Again, I would call and ask if it's not up to date. But you have a general idea. I would assume that's going to be October again this coming year. Program goals. This is what it wants to accomplish with their money. And again, it talks about creating excitement and engagement in the arts and local community. I think I'm going to stop looking at this point because I think they're really focused on art. So unless your project that you have with a water garden is going to do, something artistic, I would I would stop looking here and I would go back. Because even though that sounded like that might be a good fit, it's not going to be a good fit. You're going to not be competitive in that grant cycle. So I would go back up to you can look at the early childhood, depending on the age of your kids. This might not work either. Um, because the early childhood, as you all know, is usually before 5. So it would just again, so it says birth to 5. If you're a school, you're probably not in that bucket of funding either. So then you go up to community impact. And community impact usually is kind of a broad, it's a broad range of interests, funding interests in this one. So that's probably your best bet here. Signature grant program supports initiatives that enhance the quality of life of DuPage County residents. If your school's in DuPage County, you are serving their residents. So, um, so these are the kind of things that you would look at for whether or not you are eligible to even apply for a grant. Now, here's an informational webinar. If you have the slightest inkling that you might apply for this grant, go to the webinar. Like, never miss the webinar. It's not going to affect whether you get the grant in a way of like they're not taking attendance, but the amount of information you'll get, you always get more insight into what they want to fund from those webinars. And they'll tell you exactly the information that they're looking for. So always go to those webinars. And again, double check the eligibility. Now, it's saying that this is accepted from a nonprofit charitable organization. Again, if you are a school, you don't necessarily have a 501c3 status. And so you'll have to talk to them about being a school. Steve's got some really good advice on his website under how do I find a grant, and he suggests going to the administration to tell them I'm looking for a grant for this. And there is some like steps that schools have to go through to apply for grants and things like that, but they would have a great idea of how you should approach that. project. And maybe you have a community foundation, which is a 501(c)(3). Then you would go apply through the community foundation if they are not going to consider schools. Most community foundations will consider schools. They are usually one of your best uh, cheerleaders for schools and teachers and things like that. So always look at the restrictions. There's a lot here. Um, they will not accept applications from these different things. So, and right here, it actually says public, parochial, private, or charter schools, pre-K through 12, including supporting foundations. So this one's actually saying it will not. So luckily we kept going. Like this is where you have to keep reading because um my whole thing is that I spend the time up front so that way I am not charging a client for something that is not going to be accepted. I have to do this kind of level of research, but it's your time. You don't want to be submitting an application for something to something that won't accept it. So, uh, this one actually will not do schools, which is really interesting to me. That's not normal. Not maybe not normal, but that's not something I've seen a lot. But call them then and say, I noticed that the community impact grant does not serve schools. Do you have other funding uh, like opportunities that would I would be able to apply to? Always call them and ask, and they will point you in the right directions. So they have a lot of resources on this particular page. So definitely always look into that. So I want, Steve, do you have any questions? Because I thought I would keep going here back to like
Yeah.
some of the
Oh,
other.
no, no, no questions here. That was good.
Okay, let me try to do back to the slides here. Hmm. All right. Okay, so we've kind of gone through community foundations. That is your first step. But there's lots of other things that you want to look into in your community, such as banks, gas stations, and industries. I kind of looked up some things out there, but I didn't look into banks necessarily. Well, I've got one bank here. Um, so banks, gas stations, and industries, they sometimes have, I just found out about one here that I don't know how long it's been in existence for, but I had never heard of it before. And it's huge. And I never even thought to look at their website to see if I could find if they had any community giving. Well, we have a huge automotive maker here, and I've looked at other automotive makers, and I'm not sure why I didn't look there, but somebody just got a big grant from them, and that got my attention. So definitely look at your different industries that you have around you. Um, when you look at, so like a gas station around here, we have a lot of Casey's gas stations. I don't know if that means anything to you, wherever you all are. And we have a lot of Casey's gas stations. But if you go to the Casey's website, you will find, or even just Google like Casey's um, grant opportunities or things like that. They actually give, I think they give specifically to teachers, actually, because I was trying to do it for another organization and they really want you to have that school tie. So they're usually in very small rural communities, these Casey's, and I think the maximum in the past that may have changed is about $500. So you would have to have more than one to help buy water towers. But sometimes the school will have some funds if you can kind of raise like some of the funds as well. So always think of that. Just before we move out of this page then, and I'll show you how to find, it's very similar for banks, gas stations, and industries, how to find where the tabs that you would kind of sift through to find grants if they have any kind of grants. But another good point is the local clubs in your area. We have Lions Club and Kiwanis. You would want to find out about some of your local chapters in your area. There's other community, lots of community clubs have either scholarships, which is always good to know about, and or grants. So you might want to do some a little bit of research into that, talk to some people and see what you can find out about that. Yeah, so let me go to okay. All right. I suppose if sharing screens is the hardest thing I do today, we're not doing too bad. Okay, I'm going to show you how I would search for. I've got this bank maybe in Naperville that's BMO Harris Bank. We're going to see. This is a big company out there, I believe. Um, let's just go to the normal site. Okay, so BMO for all your banking needs. And you just go to the corporate. You don't necessarily have to go to the local branch. Go to the corporate website. And it's never up, it's never the first thing that's going to come up. When you have industries, gas stations, and banks, you're going to want to go all the way down. And you want to go down here. And you want to start looking at these tabs and you're looking for community engagement or something to that effect. About us usually, is a place you can look to. Yeah, so I don't actually see anything on this one. Let's go down here. So we found the about. So here's the impact. They have an impact tab here. That's always a good sign. So who we are and our impact. So here we go. Our impact. They have the clients, they have communities. Well, you want to look for the community impact, communities overview, corporate scholarships. There's some sponsorships there that there's a corporate sponsorship, not a scholarship, sorry. Reinvestment, BMO gives, good grows here. So I would look at the gives and well, I mean, if I'm working for someone, I would look at all of those, but for what we're doing today, I would look at the BMO gives and the corporate sponsorships because it's never hurts to have a corporate sponsorship because that's also money for what you're doing. Um, so they tell you what they give to. Um, strengthen communities where we do business, build relationships. This is only if that bank is like kind of in your community. If you would go to the manager of that bank and say, "Hey, I'm interested in the BMO gives," and you say, "I'm from XYZ school," you should go to the bank that would know about that school. Like if it's nearby or whatever. Um, so tells you about how much given to more than 1,000 nonprofits and charities across our footprint. 108 million donated in 2004. So here's their giving priorities, sustainability, philanthropic programs, advancing financial education. I mean, here's something here. You might be able to, like, if you were planning on selling your vegetables that you were growing from the water towers, I mean, there's where you would say, hey, we're gonna do a piece on financial education and how to run a business, one, would you be willing to come in and talk about your bank and how, what that looks like in the adult world to our students? And then, but also, uh, you want to, that's a possibility for a grant request there. So, how to request a donation and a grant sponsorship. It tells you what the dates are. Please note that the volume of funding requests received is has increased. That's everybody is saying that right now. They are getting so many requests that they really can't keep up with all of the requests. At this point, I'm not even sure they're reading them all. I would like to say yes, they are, of course, but like I've heard of somebody getting 800 applications, and they're giving out three. So the competitive nature of grants has just exponentially um, skyrocketed here. So, but please review our criteria and areas of funding. So we're going to do that in a minute. Have questions about applying, always go to the facts. Facts are very interesting. That's sometimes even where you will find a link to the application is in the facts. So I would say we're going to go here first. And it took us right to the facts page. So here's specific details. Um, Links to our online application portals will be available on the BMO Gives page during these cycles. So we're not quite into a cycle yet, which may be why we haven't found the portal link yet, but it's telling you what the eligibility is here. You are not eligible if you meet any of these requirements here. Here's elementary and secondary public schools, including student organizations. So again, that may not be a great fit for what you're looking for here, unfortunately. But that is how you would find, and I would go to this BMO Gives page and see what we can find here. Yeah, sometimes it'll take you right back, but yeah, you just have to keep digging. But you kind of get the idea of where you're going here. I went all the way down. I had to go all the way down to the bottom to go to about BMO. That's always a good step is about and community. Once you find community, that's how you find the money.
Mm.
Okay. That's the same for gas stations, industries, whatever.
I've told some teachers to call the bank where their school bank's at first.
Oh yeah, that's a
Find out,
fantastic.
and even where they bank personally, because they have a relationship with that bank already, which can help.
Yeah, for sure. Now, a lot of times, like not the tellers don't always know. Like you would probably want them to ask their manager or have the teller go ask the manager. It's like, hey, could you just find that out for me? Because I think you might have something. And I mean, I my philosophy when asking for money or the worst that can happen is someone will say no.
Mhm.
When you're a grant writer, you have to like have a really thick skin because you get way more rejections than you get yeses, just because. And but yeah, it can't hurt to ask for sure. All right, let me go back to um okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay, are you seeing, yeah, the local community grants? So we're still on
Yeah.
this.
Yep.
We've covered community foundations, banks, gas stations, industries, the local clubs. I don't know about websites for local clubs these days. They probably are a little more tech savvy than they used to be. So yes, maybe look at their website first. But if you can call someone or email someone about that, definitely do that. So local public library, I wanted to put this here and we'll talk about it again here in a second, but uh, your local public library has access to paid subscriptions to grant databases. most likely. Maybe not, but again, it's worth an ask because if they do have it, then they can also show you how to use the software and how to do the searches. I'm going to show you a little bit of what that looks like and how that might look or how that might go for you if you were to access it through a library or purchase it for yourself. Let me just go ahead and advance here. So there is a lot of different paid subscriptions for finding grants. I just listed three. There's many more, but I have favorites. So that's the ones you've got. I use GrantStation a lot because it's easy and I don't know, it just makes sense to me. You kind of have to find the one that you like the best, but GrantStation is very inexpensive. In fact, they run sales at least twice a year. So it comes out to be like 23 cents a day or something like that. It's very inexpensive. I would say well worth it if you think you're going to write a lot of grants. It's definitely, they call looking for grants prospecting, and it is kind of like mining for gold. I get kind of way sucked into it, but we have Grant Station, Foundation Directory, which is kind of a big time one, has lots of information, though there's some debate now that Grant Station is totally, catching up. But Foundation Directory is thousands a year for a subscription, but usually your libraries will have them. So the library will have the foundation directory. Our Allen County Library in Indiana here, they have a subscription to foundation directory. And so back in the day before I had subscriptions of my own, I would go down there and spend hours looking through things, just set aside a day and do that. And then instrumental, that is kind of a multi-function platform of finding grants and managing those fines. And so if you were going to do some major grant writing, you would want to look into one of these three. But I'm going to show you Grant Station and just show you how that would go. It's very easy to use. Let me do that. There's probably an easier way to do this, Steve. I just have not figured it out. Um, hmm. All right, I'm going to go. All right. Are you seeing Grant Station, Steve?
Yep, we are.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay. So Grant Station is just a grants research database. And what they do is they collect lots of information. So let me see. Probably should have thought this one through. So what you can do here is um, you're looking for U.S. charitable, there's U.S. federal, U.S. state government, um, and then Canadian international things. But we're not going to look at federal because if you're going to look at federal, you want to go talk to your administration. They've probably already looked at it. But we're going to look at U.S. charitable and we're going to maybe look at U.S. state. I did back in the day get a great state grant for a project that the Head Start that was under the umbrella of our school system. They were doing I can't remember what it was called, but it was like healthy eating and cooking skills for the parents. And actually it came with a bag of groceries every week for people. And that was a state grant that we got. I wish I could remember the name of that grant, but again, I called because I wasn't sure about some things in the state, uh, in the proposal that they had, and I thought it would work, but wasn't sure. So I just gave him a call. Again, the lady is so nice. She was so nice, very excited about what we were thinking about doing and how we were doing it. We had a curriculum that we wanted to follow. And so she thought this was spectacular, got very excited. So she's like, I really encourage you to apply because nobody has applied from your area. Like nobody in Northeast Indiana had ever applied. So she was like all in. She wanted us to get this money. So she was very helpful in us setting up that grant proposal, that grant request. We partnered with another community actually. She was the Purdue Extension officer who came in, and it was just a great collaborative thing that worked actually really, really well. We had a great turnout for the program. The program ran really smoothly. We sent the lady pictures throughout the program through email. She loved it. Showed the graduates of the program. So don't discount the state. It does sound maybe a little bit your school, if your school is big enough, you probably have a grant writer on staff. Go talk to them and they will help you get this done. Um, our schools were really small, so they kind of just relied on me. Um, and I was doing it for free at the time and things like that. So it was not a structured thing, but there's way better structures out there. So figure out what your school resources are and definitely use them. But you need to go and talk to them and say, this is my idea. This is what I've got to, the project that I'm thinking about, and this is all the things I have. You have to have all of your ducks in a row before the grant writer can really do anything for you. So let's look and see here. So we want to look at U.S. charitable. Geographic scope you would want to look, I would click national because you want things that are maybe national. I was telling you that maybe you won't be very competitive for national, but I always click it just to see what's out there. And then you pick your state. I'm going to pick Indiana since I'm in Indiana. Um, and so then I go down to, but let's say, um, like we maybe have somebody here on from Illinois. So we'll just do Illinois and Indiana. We can do both. So areas of interest. So, I mean, the most obvious thing that you can click is education. And it tells you like maybe it's going to be health, maybe it's going to be education innovation, um, STEM. Mm, yeah, maybe that's our focus. You can also go down to health and wellness. So I will tell you, the more things you click, the less opportunities you'll get. So I do tend to look at broadly sometimes and go from there. But there is many different routes to getting grants. So maybe let's see here, public health, health and wellness in general, health education might be something, healthy eating and nutrition. But like I
So,
said, the
so
more
Sheena, is it better to do several different searches then?
I do,
Yet search for maybe one topic at a time.
yeah, I would. So what I do is, like maybe I would do like you could actually narrow this down to STEM or maybe health. Let's narrow it down to STEM and
And if
healthy
you do
eating.
STEM and health, you'll get the grants that are for both, correct? Is that why it narrows it down?
Right. So
Yeah.
we'll narrow that down to healthy eating and nutrition and STEM education. That's a good fit, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. A lot of
And
people
then they've
think of
got
science with a tower garden or an hydroponic system, but it's way more than science. That health education is important and can also get your grant money for it.
yeah. So that I mean like we can do like you said, I would probably, if you have the time, go ahead and click maybe one of those at a time and sift through the opportunities available that way. Um, you've got sciences and social science. You've got horticulture here. Um, education is probably going to be your best fit though. So here is like types of support. I mean, so like yeah, I wouldn't really mess with this if this was something teachers were doing. Um, yeah. just keep it available to all. I would do all like that. All right. So you can do keywords. There's some great helps on the Grant Station page to understand how to use those keywords, but you can search by EIN. That's if you know what the funder is that you're looking for. So anyway, let's just go ahead and we'll do submit um, for these opportunities and we'll see what they come up with. It came up with 358 matches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it looks awesome. But so what I do is I skim this first because you'll see this one's pretty interesting right here because it's includes general education, charter schools, higher education, K-12, STEM education. It includes a lot of areas of interest that they fund. So that's actually a pretty darn good one, I think, to at least investigate. So then we go down to the Access Foundation. This is STEM education, but the geographic scope is like global. Just keeping it real, your local community school system is not going to be competitive on a global scale. Unless you have got something really amazing happening with all of the school systems in your district and all of the children, and it's transforming the whole community into raising healthy food. Like it would have to be big impact, a big impact. So I wouldn't even look at that one because you're not going to be on a global scale just yet, as far as I know. Uh, Adolf Course Foundation. Here's some things like this. This could be, they have a lot of different interests. Now, I'm not positive about this, but this might be the Coors beer. Um, it might be related to Coors beer. So as a school system, you might have to be careful, like talk to someone about that, talk to an administrator about that. You would want to do some research, see if they are linked, because school systems may not be wanting to accept funding from a beer company, even if it is healthy. So that's kind of something to look out for. Um, Again, so the geographic scope here, which is interesting, it came up with STEM education, but the only reason why it popped up as a possibility for us is because of the word Illinois in it and STEM. I mean, they do K through 12 education, and it's specifically in Chicago here. So if you're outside of Chicago, it may not be a good fit for you. Um, That's an interesting one. Air Force Association. So what you would do is you find which ones are interesting. I usually will flag them and go back to them. So let's go ahead and look at this one. Accelerate, call to effective action. It's for the whole nation. Uh, so I'm going to view the profile. And then again, you're going to want to read the whole little blurb here. Supports models of individuals, instruction that demonstrates the potential to deliver cost-effective services on a large scale that improves outcomes for students, particularly students in historically underserved communities. So you would have to kind of weigh, they use this word large scale. So you would really have to weigh the impact. Like if you know that this is going to be large scale for what you're doing, like if you're going to be able to, like a lot of teachers are going to do this in your school system. And, if the impact's going to be greater than a couple classrooms, then yeah, this might be a really good fit. But I'll just show you what all this has on it. But it has a little blurb to describe what they're interested in and usually about how much. But here's um, deadlines. It'll tell you the grant range. You want to pay attention to that. If it says um, that the maximum is 5,000, don't ask for 10. It's especially if you've never had any grants from them. If you've had a grant from them, of course, then you have a relationship with them. You can go talk to them like, hey, we would really need 10,000 for this. What do you guys think? And they might say, sorry, we only are going to give up to 5. But they might also say, hey, you know what? We do have this other funding bucket that we keep in the back. Let me talk to that special committee and we'll get back with you. So there's just always, if it's local, it's always worth talking to someone in person and telling them what you need. Um, but this is national, and so the range is crazy, which is great. What else does it tell us here? Program support. Um, that's good because that's what you're doing is a project a program. Eligibility details, nonprofit organizations, education institutions, including public and charter schools and institutions of higher education and for-profit education organizations. So this is what they want you to be to apply for the grant. And I would say your public school or charter school would definitely be a fit here. They're obviously interested in educational institutions, so that's really good. So some other things that they have here is some contact information. That's always great to reach out and ask questions with. Um, but you want to go to the grants awarded page because 0 to 350,000 is not a great range when you're I mean it's a great range, but it's not very specific. So what I would do is kind of come down and look at it's not what I was expecting, but if I go back here, so what I was looking for is just a list. Basically, they do have a list here of the people that they have supported, um, but not how much. And I really want to know how much that everybody got. So where's the 990? Hmm, interesting. Anyway, Grand Station's changed a little bit of their setup here, so I'm surprised because that's not what it looked like last week. But anyway, it gives you the website to their programs and then some resources. And you want to learn how to. So, our work grant programs, and this tells you which grant programs they have available and what specifically they were going to fund with those different interests, bucket funding buckets of interest. So that may be a fit, it may not be a fit. National, like I said, it's better to kind of start more local. Now we can go more local. Like let's take away national and let's take away, um, mm, let's just take away Illinois for now and see if I'm trying to get this narrowed down here. So we're down to 75. All-day community gift card program, that's never a bad thing for schools. Just on a side note, it's not necessarily for water towers, but that would be good for other things. Um, it's going to show you if it just kind of comes up with, oh, look at that. New, Being for Others, Health and Wellness Foundation. Indiana. So it tells me it's in Indiana, but they're specifically looking at counties of Crawford, Davies, Du Bois, Martin, Orange, Perry, Pike, Spencer. Unfortunately, that's none of my counties up here. But that happens a lot because that's around Indianapolis, and that's to be expected. The closer you are to a large city, the better that is. Um, yeah, no, I won't. So here's like it will have community foundations in here. Um, so your local community foundation should pop up in here as well. There's a community foundation alliance. So that's an alliance. So that covers all of these counties here in Indiana. So that's like 6 or 7 counties in Indiana. So, okay, so that's Grant Station. Do you have, I don't know, Steve, do you have any other thoughts on that? If you go to the state government stuff, I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm going to go to Indiana and I'm going to go to education, and the green is grants. So there's library, there's lots of library grants. So if you guys are looking for library things, but let's go to education. And we want grant funding, additional grant opportunities, state grants, alternative education. I don't know. You people in like people who are educators, you would know some of these terms better than I would. So you would know if alternative, I'm thinking, oh, alternative, that means like cool science stuff, but I don't know. Education programs are designed to meet the needs of public school students 6 to 12, grades 6 to 12 who have been successful in a are provided with a variety of options that can lead to graduation and are supported. Oh, okay, alternative, that kind of alternative. Okay. See, you all probably knew that before I did. Um, so yeah, additional grant. There's an Explore, Engage, and Experience grant, pre-K to 12.
So,
Mm.
Sheena, you mentioned the libraries.
Mm-hmm.
Would you actually have to go to the library to do the searching? Is that how it would work?
Uh,
Search online at the library then if
when we were talking about
you said libraries might have access to those paid search grant
yeah.
websites.
So what you do is you go up to the desk, the service desk usually, and you would ask them about if they had any grant directories, grant research directories. And I mean, you might be able to find it on their website. I don't know
Okay.
actually, but I would just ask a librarian and see what they say. But it's usually in kind of that research area of your library. And yeah, they would either tell you, so they may have Grant Station, but they also may have Foundation Directory. If they do, they will give like a little tutorial on how to like kind of get into it. It looks very different than Grant Station. And uh but same idea. You're going to narrow things down a little bit, look for specific project related terms, things like that. You're going to narrow it down to your state, maybe your community, things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
mhm.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, you mentioned often call the foundation, call the banks, because we get the impression that foundations are Scrooges. They don't want to give up their money, but they want
Nope.
to give their money out.
Yep.
So I think that
There.
might be a key takeaway is to just pick up the phone and call them. It's probably better than an email too, to
Yeah.
ask
I think
questions and
it's quicker than an email for sure. And it just makes it just gives you a little bit of a connection with them as well. And so you get a chance to kind of tell them why you want to write a grant and what for. And it's usually because you're excited about something. And so that excitement kind of is shared with them without having to try to get it on the page, which is a little harder. So a real human interaction is much better than just the paper version. You know what I mean? So
oh,
Yeah, it gets them, it at
Oh,
least gives them a heads up. Hey, this grant might be coming in. I've at least had a chance to talk with them about it. That's great. We'll see how it looks on paper. Do they have outcomes and things? And we'll do another webinar and all that. But um,
oh,
yeah, so a couple free resources real quick is just I would for teachers do getedfunding.com. I think it's a .com. It might be a .org. Sorry, I should have checked. But they just ask you to like kind of sign up for it. It's free though. I think they just are keeping track of their numbers. Maybe it's grant funded, so they're trying to keep track of who's using it. Definitely get in there. It's a similar kind of search mechanism as GrantStation. Um, keepitwater.com. Steve's got a
yeah,
lot of good grant opportunities on there. I think that's a great place to start. Some of those are bigger. I saw that some of the national ones, but and those are not bad, but you really have to have a really good solid project with plans and outcomes and stats and all that sort of stuff. And you may have that, and if you do, you would definitely be in a better position to apply for one of those grants. And then Google and AI assisted searches. You can do it. You can try it. I'm not against it. More and more funders are wanting their websites to pop up, so they're putting more into that. Um, they're putting more effort into making sure that those will pop up when you're looking for funding. Um, it's a hard way to go though. It's not the easiest. You're not going to get the best. A lot of times things are maybe not you'll get organizations that have already closed down and um never pay for a grant. Don't like I mean, you can pay for a grant writer. That's different. But if you go to a website and it's saying, we have this great opportunity, we have money for you, but you need to send us $150, don't do it. That is not how grants work. You never pay them a fee, nothing to look through your grant proposal. So um, there are some scam sites out there. So just know that no, unless you're working with a grant professional who's, providing a service for you, that is not how no funder should ask you for money. Um, yeah, so that's really all I had for the morning, but I thought that might be a
oh.
good place to start for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that, and thanks for the information. And hopefully, it would be a good resource for teachers and schools looking for grants. So
Yeah.
thanks, Sheena. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Steve. It was great.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, I'm going to stop the recording here as I figure out how to do that.